So you've often called yourself as a battle-hardened executive who,
Sabunwala.
who never gets overawed by challenges. And the world is like, there's so many challenges today. Be it the tariffs, be it climate change. I mean, there are a plethora of challenges right now. So what would be your advice, to people, to leaders, to organizations to handle these challenges? How do they, kind of weather these challenges?
Yeah. The challenges are going to be of very different types. And during my career of running Unilever's business in 25 countries over the years, so I had seen the second Gulf War, where there was a lot of angst against the Western multinationals, especially in Islamic countries. Then I'd seen the Arab Spring when I was running the North Africa, Middle East business, where it started from Tunisia and spread across the region. And then over my 10 years running Hindustan Unilever, whether it was demonetization or the rural slowdown, or, of course, the mother of all, the COVID that happened, there will be challenges of different kinds. But there are certain principles which have held me in good stead. Of course, in India, is right now China or Chinese is not the flavor of the day. But if you look at the word crisis in Chinese language, it is made out of two characters. It's danger and opportunity. And I think in the previous panel, there was a young man who was talking about the opportunity. And he's so right. It's the lens you need to bring to the problem. If you look at, during my days at Hindustan Unilever, whenever the times were tough, we gained huge amount of market shares. During my days in North Africa, Middle East, when the whole country of Egypt was up in flames, even the cops had left the barracks. We did a counterintuitive thing. We said we'll double down, we'll spend more money on advertising, because the only thing people were doing was watching television, nothing else. The other is when people were shrinking distribution, we doubled down on distribution. And so when you do counterintuitive things, hunt for opportunities, you tend to gain much more than what you would be gaining otherwise. But the most important thing at the end of the day are your people. Whether it is COVID, whether it is Arab Spring, I think the most important fundamental principle I have believed in, look after your people and the people will look after your business. Yeah, when the banks were shut in Middle East, we collected money from the wholesalers. They were very happy to part with the money and the distributors, because they were worried about the safety of the cash. We made pockets and reached out, not just to our workers, but even to our distributor salespeople, handing them cash. We collected grains, brought them to the factory in Cairo, and told all our people, when you run out of food, please come and collect it from here. And without us prompting, when the other factories were being burned, nothing happened to the Unilever factories, because our workers voluntarily stood guard. They would come in shifts and ensure that the factory is protected. So the first factory which started after the crisis was the Unilever factory. Similarly, when COVID was there, we took upon ourselves the responsibility, not just for our people and their families, but for all the people in the ecosystem, running into 500,000. The idea was, these are the times, if you look after them, it will pay back. And it does. So the simple principle, look after your people, people will look after your business.
But how does the equation change for a startup founder who has limited funds, who's bootstrapped? Because Unilever is cash rich. It is a company of scale. So what really would be your advice to a startup founder? How do they kind of deal with these kind of challenges?
At the end of the day, I think what matters is your intent. Yeah, a startup founder will not be having the number of people that you need to look after as Unilever. But the handful of people who work for you, treat them as your family. Yeah, if you have the right intent and the purpose, you would make it come alive. I think the important bit is there is an unwritten covenant between the employees and the employer, between the subordinate and the bosses. Yeah, and you know that if you look after them, they pay back to you. It need not be enshrined in any contract. That's basic humanity. Just like your staff at home. Don't you go out of your way to look after them. That's the same principle that needs to be adopted.
So what would be the biggest crisis you've handled per se? I know you talked about quite a few of them, but can we just go deeper into one such crisis, which was the biggest?
Again, I'll give you different facets. COVID was special because we were losing lives and we were a business which was still running operations. At the end of the day, we were dealing with essential products. And remember, those were the days when soaps and sanitizers were saving lives. Arab Spring was of a very different kind of crisis. And it was very interesting. We had a partner, one of our major partners in Egypt, who happened to be the industry minister in Mr. Hosni Mubarak's cabinet. And when Mursi, the Muslim Brotherhood, took over, they had never run a government. So they thought that Unilever Mashriq is Rashid company, our partner's company. And they were out to destroy it. So that was another kind of crisis. Now I'll tell you, when I was chairman of Bangladesh, in a business like consumer goods where we fight for 20 bips of market share, our biggest category in the country, we had lost shares from 85 to 35 in a period of 4 years. 85 share points to 35 share points. For the simple reason that a local competitor came out saying that the soaps manufactured by Unilever are haram and their soap is halal, and they accused, because the soap was being made out of tallow, that Unilever is using cow fat and pig fat. Yeah, one was anathema to the Islamists and the other to the Hindus. And that was again all about winning back the trust of the people and rebuilding your business. So crisis, but I think the biggest crisis I have seen in my career was pre-Unilever. I was a young man, and I was sent to be part of the Bhopal Gas Tragedy crisis team. Yeah, I was 24 years old, and I believe a boy became a man when I was sent to Bhopal. And Bhopal, many of the youngsters might not even have been born when the Bhopal gas tragedy happened. In the intervening night of December 2nd and 3rd in 1984. But that was a crisis of huge proportions. And it is still touted as perhaps the world's biggest industrial disaster. I still remember when I used to go from our guest house in Shamla Hills to the factory, we used to go under police protection. And that was a crisis under different dimensions. There was CBI investigating, there was Council of Scientific and Industrial Research investigating, there were the victims to whom you had to provide aid, you had to shut down operations, you had to separate thousands of people, there was litigation in the US, there was litigation in the Indian courts. It was a crisis of huge dimensions. And after being part of that small crisis team and managing, I think one thing I have felt over the years is I never get daunted by a crisis. Throw me at any deep end of the water, I'll never get daunted.
So today in our audience, quite a few of our winners are the next gen of legacy organizations. And I remember when you took over HUL in 2013, you kind of set yourself the task of reinventing HUL. And many of them in the audience are actually looking at reinventing their legacy. So what would be your advice to them?
If you have to build a timeless company, one is you have to be true to your roots. Yeah? I'm a big believer in purpose. Individual purpose, corporate purpose, brand purpose. And you have to be true to them. But you have to be cognizant of the changing context in which you operate. Yeah? Be it your consumer behavior, be it your consumer trend. And if you're a company like HUL, where you have got 50-odd brands, and if you have to build timeless brands, again, you have to make them contemporary. Yeah? You may not veer away from the core of the brand, but the way you communicate and the way the brand appears in the market, they should be able to resonate with the next-gen consumers. If they are not able to do it, then they will lose their sheen and they'll get left behind. So during my days, we had picked up a few big strategies. One was winning in many Indias. Winning in many Indias stemmed from my experience of running 20 countries in North Africa, Middle East. And when I came here, while I knew India intimately, having been born here, grew up here, that the 20 countries of MENA had more in common than the 28 states of India. There they had one predominant religion, one predominant language, one predominant culture. In our country, the language changes, the palette changes, the way you dress up changes, the way you define beauty changes. So treating a heterogeneous country as a homogeneous country was a big mistake a large company would do. So we broke up India into 14 relatively homogeneous clusters, and we had distinct strategy for each cluster. Yeah. Now, many who come from legacy business might say, Sanjiv, didn't you add complexity to it? Now, I have a very different take on complexity. Complexity is a bit like cholesterol. You have a high-density lipoprotein and you have a low-density lipoprotein. If it's a good complexity, a corporation needs to learn to manage it. And if it's a bad complexity, you can weed it out. So we added good complexity. And today, if you pick up a bag of Surf Excel, in different parts of India, the formulation is different depending on the hardness of water. The pack size is same, the formulation is different. If you pick up Red Label Brook Bond, the blend inside is different depending on the palate. Now, I'm a Punjabi. If you go to Punjab, वहाँ पर they add tea to milk rather than milk to tea. Yeah. But if you go to Eastern UP, there you will find they want kadak chai. So you can't have one blend. You pick up Lux soap, same white bar. The perfume is different in different parts of India depending on consumer preference. So we changed the game. Even the strategy was different. Somewhere it was about driving penetration, somewhere it was about driving consumption, somewhere it was about premiumizing. Yeah. So that added huge value. The second was reimagining HUL using data and technology. Just think of it. HUL reaches 95% of the household across the spectrum of the country. It manufactures and sells 70 billion units every year. The amount of data that HUL collects is humongous. And if you can convert that data, treat it as an enterprise asset, and convert that and use it in a meaningful way, you can make a big difference. You know, there's so much of work went behind it that JP Morgan Asset Management, which were big investors in HUL, when they came in 23, and they spent a day looking at our Reimagine HUL work, they said HUL is now a tech company which also sells consumer goods. And whether it is our Agile Innovation Hub, whether it is our Shikhar app, whether it is a Chanakya, whether it is our own models of how do you optimize the different levers of the business. And this was all homegrown. Now, when HUL is an employer of choice, you are able to recruit the best talent in the country, and then you create an enabling environment and unleash them, then magic happens. And that's what happened with HUL. So I would say that a good competitor brings out the best in a legacy company, provided you are ready to adapt and you are agile enough to recognize the opportunities and challenges, decide what you want to do with them, and act with speed. It's not by accident that here is a company which has remained a market leader for 90 years. How many companies are there in the world which can say in a big market you have remained a market leader for 90 years? And it happens when you reinvent yourself and change with the times. That's how you build a timeless company.
So reinvent yourself and change with times. That's the mantra. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Mehta, for your time.
Pleasure.
Pleasure talking to you.